Good afternoon. Looks like it's the first LinkedIn Live. Hopefully, it's looking well as you comment. If you just post a comment to say hi, so I know people are there. Um, it's working. This is a test. If you hear me, the comments coming up here. Just wait a minute as people are joining on. Okay. One of the things we're going to learn is what's the best time of the day to do these LinkedIn lives. Okay. So just as a good afternoon, just as a way to begin, the topic is where do I see opportunities in commercial real estate for investing? So just to go back, give a little bit of a history lesson. Most deals today are being put together because there's a sponsor, a syndicator, an owner, a GP. You could use those words interchangeably. That goes to contract to buy a building. Let's say, for argument's sake, a $9 million building. And they could go and they could get a loan on that building for $7 million. In that scenario, where they're able to go ahead and get a loan for $7 million, the difference in the 7 to the 9 million, they go ahead and raise the money. Either they have the money themselves, or typically go to friends and family. Get 25,000 here, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, whatever the number is per person. Raise that 2 million plus the closing costs, and they'll go ahead and buy that building. And that's how almost every single deal goes down today. A very high percent of deals are syndicated. And those how the deals take place and deals get tracked. The issue we're running into right now is that because of interest rates being higher, when it comes time to refinance that building, either from a debt service coverage ratio, a cash flow perspective, we'll get into definitions later on, but from a cash flow situation, the new lender might say, hey, you don't have enough cash flow to refinance and cash out. There's not enough room for you to borrow instead of 7 million, 7.5 or 8 million. Instead, you get flat, the same number, or maybe what's called even a cash in. You have to go backwards. You have to go ahead and pay into the loan in order to refinance. We're only going to lend you, let's say, $6 million or $6.5 million, $6.75 million. So that they come with money to pay it down. So let's go with this scenario in reality today going forward. What's looking like, what it seems to be the big case going forward. What's going to end up happening is that I think that deal, the person bought for 9 million. Over time, they worked it, got it better. It's probably went up to worth 9.5, 10, 11, maybe in the heyday. They bought it several years ago. Today, they're going to come back to refinance that loan. They come to the bank today, it's only worth 8 million. So the bank says, we'll only lend you 6. What is this person supposed to do? That $8 million that they bought the building for. They right now can get a loan for 6, have a balance for 7. They're a little bit up the creek. So the most common option would be, if they don't have extra money, is sell the building for 8. They'll give the bank $1 million, and they'll give the bank $1 million. If they don't have that $1 million, then and the other $1 million, they'll put in their pocket and take a loss. So if you go with the math, they bought a building for 9, now they have a loan for 7. They have $2 million of equity. A year, whatever it is, 5 years later, the building is now worth only $8 million. They sell it for the $8 million. They took the $1 million loss, but even of that $8 million, they don't get $2 million left. They only get $1 million left because they got to pay down the bank. Instead of doing this, they already own the building. They don't want to just walk away from a building that they own. So instead of doing this, the other next option for them is instead to recapitalize, which will mean instead of selling the building for $8 million, they'll find investors and say, hey, do you want to invest in this deal with me as a syndicator? I own this building for 5 years. It's not worth the same like it was, but $1 million is worth 50% of the deal, right? We established before that if they would sell the building on the $8 million, if they'd sell the building for $8 million and pay down $1 million and be left with $1 million, that means they would have $1 million worth half the deal. So being at half the deal at this point, they could say they'll take in partners, 4 people at $250. They'll recapitalize and take in new partners at that point. The structure to make it even better for the LPs that are coming in, new LPs, they could tell an LP, you know something? Instead of coming in even to a brand new deal, only getting 50%, let's structure a little bit like preferred equity. And on a deal, instead of giving away 50%, they'll give the LP 40%. However, they will tell the LP that instead of you taking 40%, instead of you just taking 40%, which is not the same 50-50, they'll make it much stronger. They'll give them a better preferred return. They'll give them more preferential treatment on their equity. So out of the cash flow that's coming out of the deal now, instead of splitting it at the ratio pro rata of 60-40, they'll give them more of that cash flow. They'll work out a structure where if something goes sour, they'll get the money out first before the other equity. So their equity will have a preferential status on it. So the baseline, they could have just raised the money by selling half the deal for $1 million. But they could structure it as preferential. Obviously, the larger the deal, this same example is a $90 million, or $80 million, $70 million, add a zero to this scenario. To get someone to write a $10 million check, probably a $10 million check is a good chance you'll have to sell it 50% of the deal, and the original investors get diluted, like they would happen on this deal. But in addition to the 50%, then they'll still get preferential treatment on a lot of things. So you're talking about where's opportunity. The opportunity, if you're sitting on money now, if you go to gparency.com/meet-the-GP, you could fill out a form that one of our clients looking to raise money or do a recapitalization, we'll let you know about it. And you can decide to deal directly with the GP, directly with the syndicate, directly with the owner. But the opportunity now is you could be able to find yourself a deal where you'll be able to go invest with someone that already owned the deal for several years, knows the deal, and be able to get your investment much more secure and a better valuation than the people who invested with this investor 5 years ago. So I hope to keep sharing these different types of opportunities that the market could bring and structures that people are working on. And I thank you very much for joining.